Hello and welcome. My name is Blake Croft with UniversiD&D.
And I am Sage Croft, also with UniversiD&D, and I'm the producer of the show. And we have two special guests with us today. Blake, do you want to tell us who they are?
Sure. So some of you may know them from their channel on YouTube, Nerdarchy. We have Nerdarchists Dave and Ted with us today. If you'll both say hi.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. We just wanted to start out. The people watching know a little bit about us, but some of them may be completely unfamiliar with you guys. So if you guys will just talk just briefly about your channel and what it is you seek to do.
Sure. So Nerdarchy is a multimedia platform for discussing role-playing games, primarily around 5e D&D. Sometimes we've been known to branch out into other games as well. We produce products. We have a website where we have multiple articles going up a day. We produce multiple videos a week. And then on our second channel, we do gameplays and live chats with different guests, kind of like this format.
Yeah, it's basically if you have anything you need to know, you go to their channel.
As you guys, kind of introduced us as, veterans, we have been playing, the game for decades. I think Dave is, right around 30 years. I'm approaching 25 to 30 years myself. Dave got started with, first edition. I started with second edition. We've played, numerous other RPGs besides D&D, but it always seems to come around and go back to D&D. When we play other stuff, I'm looking for, what kind of things can I steal to put into D&D, or what kind of things do I want to avoid when playing D&D?
Right,
Awesome.
right. And that was actually our first question. So we as a channel are, we obviously represent the younger generation, whereas you guys are the veteran players who have been around since the beginning. So we wanted to ask you how you both got started in playing D&D, because, I mean, so many people get different ways. Was it, did you used to make miniatures? Did you just kind of fall into the game? Did you start with other RPGs? So.
Yeah, so I feel like I was like 5 or 6 when my neighbor, who was a couple years older than me, came over and he had the red box, for the basic D&D, and started pulling it out and showing me stuff. He's like, "Hey, do you want to check out this game?" And and I was like, "Oh, that's that thing I had seen before." And that's how I got it started, playing with different friends in our neighborhood.
For me, it was, kind of sort of around the same time, 12, 13, 14 years old. And I was, heavily active in scouts through, most of my, early childhood, and, into in and out the rest of my life, really. I'm still technically involved in scouts with my son's troop now. But, I vaguely recall getting involved with the kids that I was involved in scouts with, as well as a couple other, kids that were in my class. And I can recall, cycling over to a friend's house here or there to just, play D&D, after school, after your homework's done, or, when we're, camping out in the woods and we've got free time, and say, okay, we brought the books, we brought the dice, let's go ahead and, pull it out and play. But I guess I've always been a nerd, always been a geek, or whatever terminology you want to slap onto, the gamers. That's where I've been. And it's always something that it's been there and fun to do.
That's awesome. Does your son play D&D also, or not?
Yeah, my son is 12, my daughter is 8, and they both have been playing for a little over 2 years.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, wow. Get started early. That is what we like to see. We want to ask you. That's amazing. Obviously, so we actually got started with 5th edition. We hadn't been alive when many of the earlier editions had come out. So we wanted to ask you, what was the game like in those earlier editions, 1st edition or 2nd edition? Like how was it different from the game? Was it like completely different, or was it pretty similar?
I would hazard to say the game has kind of moved backwards somewhat towards the ideology of the way the game was originally put together. Only it's been cleaned up, and it's had, however many years, what is it, like 50 years now, to refine and learn how to, put together and design rules, compared to when before, with the first system, there was nothing really to go by. There were no role-playing games. I mean, we had Luke Gygax on the other day, and he was telling us about, the different companies that turned his dad down when he's like, hey, I've got an idea for a game. And people were like, nobody will play that. So really it's, technically it's more sophisticated and more streamlined, but I feel like at its core, it's kind of going back to its roots. The designers will often say 5E's about rulings over rules, where with each edition of the game, it actually got tighter and tighter with the rules. And then, once they got the fifth, they kind of like rolled that back. And it was one of the things that I realized that I had missed from the earlier editions when we went to third edition, where everything was kind of like really spelled out as far as the rules went, was that freedom that you had in the previous edition, where it was more about the rulings at the table than like somebody looking up a rule in the book and going, oh, well, on page 73 here in the player's handbook, it says, so it, but that being said, it's still kind of, it was like a snowball rolling down a hill, right? Picking up things from all the different editions. And it's just an amalgamation of all of them combined. And they seem to, capture most of the things that I really enjoyed from the previous editions.
So, first I would say that, every table is going to be different. If you have a group and, based on our earlier conversations with you guys being involved in theater, it doesn't matter what edition you guys play, you're going to focus a decent amount of the game on the role-playing aspect, on that role-playing pillar. But then you have people who might not be as comfortable getting into emotional layers and getting into, character on character development. They might want to, be more involved and focus on, that combat pillar.
Where does it go from here? Right. So now you're starting to see more of an emphasis on the role play, but what does the next edition look like? Or where does the trends that you guys see coming out over the next couple of years for Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah, I mean, that's really tough, especially having like gone through all the editions where it's gone, streamlined, refined, more rules, pulled back, try to codify it, make it like, the way a video game is kind of put together and understood, and then pulling back even further from that. So, where do you go from that? Like 5E, as good as it is, they didn't take any risks. They didn't take any chances. They weren't shooting for the fences on this. They really took all the safe elements from previous editions and mixed them, and they mixed them well. But it's not like, even with the products they're releasing now, they are really, you can see that they're really like slow to make any kind of big changes or listen to the community. Everything gets play tested, everything gets surveyed. I mean, even the designers that we've talked to have been like, it has to have a 70% approval for us to even go through with it. Once they do these surveys, it's very like mathematical about how they decide where they go with things. So, maybe the next edition, maybe they take on some chances or risks, but on 5E, I will say, in that regards, they did not.
Yeah, no, that is, those are all fantastic points. As we are just getting into this game, our group started playing only about a year and a half ago. So we're just seeing all these developments like as they come. We kind of came into the full swing of 5th edition, and that's where we picked up. So it's just interesting to hear where you think like the game will go in the future, as that'll be what it's like when we're growing up, and we'll be veterans who started in 5th edition. So
there's a lot of new people getting into D&D, right? There's a very young community that's coming up. You have a lot of pop culture going on. Obviously, Stranger Things brought a lot of popularity and visibility to the game. What do you think is the best way for young people to get involved with the game and get involved with the community?
Go where the community is, right? So like a lot of what Ted talks about of like having so many games is because, after doing Nerdarchy, it kind of immersed us in all these different communities that are RPG based. And even like some of our players that we picked up were just from us doing nerdy things like going to game stores, putting yourself out there. Maybe you check out organized play, and from that you can, you know, put together a home group, or, you know, going to comic book stores, going to local conventions, local events, seeing people use Meetup. So there's a lot of options out there compared to like when we first got started. Like I didn't buy my books on Amazon. I didn't buy my books from a gaming store. I bought them from Walden Books and B. Dalton, which don't exist. You guys probably don't even know what I'm talking about. So if you were lucky, we had comic book stores that also had like one shelf with some gaming stuff on it. But I feel like you can go on and you can find resources, even like YouTubers like us and you guys start to build your own communities, and within those communities you'll even see gaming groups pop up.
That is a fantastic point. Sage and I had actually, the whole cast of UniversiD&D we're in the beginning stages of trying to push out a program that kind of does just that. It's kind of like an LFG for our channel. We're calling it the Crit Initiative. And so what that is basically college groups and high school groups, like all these different people that are looking for a place or an avenue to get into the mainstream D&D community. That's kind of what it's trying to do, and try to connect all those groups and starting things like that. So exactly everything you said, matching DMs with players that have similar styles and like similar games. So that's something that we are focusing on as well, and are hoping to roll out pretty soon. We're kind of in the early stages.
Awesome.
Also too, like if you're in school, check your school, see if there's a gaming group, right? Like see if there's a club that you can just join and get involved that way. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about that as I was listening to you guys talk, it occurred to me, because that didn't exist when I was in school, but now it does. So it's, it's kind of cool. And I hear people being turned away because they actually have too much of a response and they don't have enough availability. So that's another area where people could at least check out as well.
Yeah, I hadn't, it's been so far removed, from my time at, college and high school of, looking for, clubs or groups that, might be involved. That's absolutely a solid point, for, your level of audience, trying to get to that younger crowd. So I would definitely go down that road as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm part of I go to Chapman University, which is in California. And my school has a Dungeons and Dragons club. So I'm a part of it. And one of the major issues we're facing right now is that there's probably 40 players who really want to play, and maybe like 4, maybe 5 DMs. Because it's so many new people who are just trying to discover the community for the very first time. So yeah, there's a lot of good problems to have, I guess.
That sounds like no problem. Just 8 to 10 person groups.
Just make them really big.
After more of those players in the DMs.
Yeah.
This is what you do. You're like, hey, we got the perfect chair for you, and you sit them down behind the screen, and be like, all right, this is your table.
So surprise.
That in and of itself, is something that can be cultivated. Both Dave and I have been a part of groups that have been as high as 13 players at the table. Those moments are rare, and it's sometimes chaotic, but it's certainly doable. I had, for a 5th edition game, I had as many as 9 players at my table for a little while. Crowded around the table behind the camera here. It's rough. It's challenging at times, but it's certainly feasible. It's certainly doable. The trick is to just make sure that everybody's having fun and has enough time in the limelight, if you will. But for the people that want to play, you could start a system where, all right, you've got more people interested in playing than DMing. You could have that option where, all right, you play every week, but you've got a rotating DM and a rotating story, as opposed to, we're going to meet every week and one DM has to run that story every single week. We learned that, that was for us specifically, that was a recipe for burnout. Now we run 3 games a month, 3 different stories, to some degree, 3 different groups. But I mean, if everybody takes a turn DMing, everybody then has, several weeks off where they can be preparing their material while somebody else is running, and you're still getting the ability to game in every week. So that's been our recipe for, dealing with those, that it's like, all right, I've DM'd this story long enough, I need a break. Yeah,
and after 20 years, we accidentally discovered the secret to getting rid of burnout. So a little bit hard-headed.
That's funny. That was literally gonna be my next question, is how do you prevent burnout? You guys beat me to it. You guys just mind readers.
I'm sorry, it's just, it flowed naturally into the conversation. Do we want to rewind time and I'll unsay that?
Yeah, let's rewind it real quick. I'll cut out, edit around that real quick.
Yeah, so when 5e started, me and Ted both started a campaign. And then that guy that we met at the Yo-Yo Club was knowledgeable about a lot of different systems, and he would literally like devour, RPG books the way other people would read novels, only like faster. And so he would then run either a D&D game for us in the beginning, and then from there he started running other RPGs for us. So, we would play 3 Saturdays out of the month at Ted's house in person, and it would just be a different game every week. It took us longer to get through our campaigns, but that being said, it's the first time both me and Ted were able to take a campaign from level 1 to level 20. It's never happened. Like we would play, we might play a dozen sessions, and that would be kind of a longish game, and then someone would get bored, or someone would want to run something, and then would always intend to go back to that campaign and never get back to it. I'm pretty sure we've probably abandoned more campaigns than a lot of people have played at this point. Always with the vow we would go back to them, but those vows have pretty much never been fulfilled.
We definitely have more campaigns unfinished than, like, move the one shots aside. Just talking about, we're going to start and run a campaign. More things that have kind of left, with this, open-ended, cataclysm, or just, whatever. There's still a campaign that we played in 3rd edition that I would love to go back to. And just, even if we played that one more session just to see what would happen.
And so I wanted to ask how, like, COVID and all of this has had an effect on your games or on your channel. If you're having some of the same experiences we are, playing online versus in person, like what your experience with that has been.
So we took, we totally believe that, all of this needs to be, safe and secure. So we initially had, those games in person, been all moved to online. And initially, right before COVID, we were getting, Dave's second campaign up and running, and we were, he was just getting a third gaming group back together to run something that wasn't D&D. And, again, we were looking for all things that were in person. So February, we're putting all of these pieces together, because prior to that, it was just me running my one game once a month. And then we go into March and the world turns to fire. So we moved those games to online. Wasn't hard to make that switch. But we wound up having more time. People aren't traveling, people aren't going places. So, like, we've all kind of picked up more games. I think Dave has picked up a couple extra. We added, an extra on the, Tuesday night that we're now streaming. It's going to be a rotating story that, there's all different DMs, different stories, what have you, similar to what we do each month. So that's been, for us, it's been more gaming since COVID hit than less.
Do you guys have any, like, other advice for players or DMs? Just it could run the gambit, really anything.
I'm going to answer this with a joke first. There's thousands of videos over on our YouTube channel. If you want to go check out, there's probably a playlist, and Dave will correct me if I'm wrong, but for player advice and GM advice. but I'm going to throw two generic things out there. And, the GM tip is totally contrary to what I stated as my primary problem. But as a GM, relax. You're all going to have fun. You're all playing a game together, regardless of if you're streaming or if you're just playing, at your home table. Just try to have fun, listen to your players, and, just enjoy the game. You don't need to, go crazy with it. You can take a break. You can ask for 5 minutes. You can say, hey, I wasn't prepared for this. Can you give me a minute? Take a quick bio, or, let me quick check something and we'll get back into it. All of that is completely cool. If you're on a stream, hey guys, RP amongst yourself for a second. I need to collect my thoughts and I'll come back to an answer. It's been done on, several different streams. It's another fun thing to do is, listen to your players. If you start off a game, you don't have to have everything figured out. Your players are going to give you the recipe of exactly what they're looking for. Dave, he's got a dartboard with, loads of different stories on it, and he's going to throw things out there, and eventually he's going to throw something out and the players are going to attach to it and say, I'm going to go do this. All right, great. There's the story. And it might be the story for the session, a couple of sessions, or the main campaign, depending upon how hard you bite onto that story is and how big the DM wants to, run that thread. I mean, you can definitely have, a story that's like, all right, this is really frail. How long can you keep that going? How long do you have an interest in keeping it going? So you got to play that delicate balance, to figure that stuff out. But Dave and I, based on the conversations we were having before we turned the camera on, Dave and I are very improv GMs. We like to throw things out there and, okay, let's just run with things. Where it sounds like, Blake, you're definitely more I'm going to overplan. I'm going to do a lot of stuff behind the scenes to have it ready. And, some of that comes from, experience and familiarity with, not only the game, but, the players that you're playing with as well. So there might come a time where you shift over to that style or not. But, that's definitely how we tend to, get things going.
And frustration of writing tons of material and your players not using any of it.
Tear that page out and throw it behind you. Yep, we're not going to do that anymore.
The funniest thing. So Blake is a complete over planner on everything he does. And I remember very specifically, I was shooting one of the episodes of our campaign, and all of a sudden, it came out that Blake had designed a star system for this campaign, and they had like astrology and all, like they had this whole cool like constellations and everything, and I was like, oh my god, that's so cool, right? And then we gave him like all the months and everything, and they're like, what kind of holidays do they have? And he's like,
just like it's funny, you plan and you try to overplan, you try to plan everything, and you never can. There's always something you miss. So I'm definitely feeling that at the moment. But I do feel as I'm DMing more sessions and I'm getting more into it, I am getting more familiar and playing a little more with improv.
Know what you do?
You're going to say the same thing I was going to.
Next time they ask you that, say, well, what is your favorite holiday your people celebrate? And let them come up with the holidays.
Yeah.
That was exactly what I was going to say is, you turn the question around. And that's one of the things that I picked up, several years ago by playing a game called Dungeon World that is very driven on player agency. You definitely should, as a DM, turn it around and know full well that as a DM, when you give players agency and they decide to abuse it, you've got the right to say, no, that's not accurate. Let's try again. But you've got the ability to throw it out there, and the players who really care about the story and are not going to try to abuse the system to be like, okay, what about this, what about that? So coming up with holidays and gods and that kind of stuff doesn't necessarily need to be all assigned to the DM. So when you get stuck with something, turn that around. Why don't you tell me? You don't know how many times in a session that I've said to players, okay, you're walking down the corridor, you turn the corner and I'll turn to a player. What do you see? And they're thrown for a loop. But sometimes, I mean, Dave is usually awesome at this. I'm just like, okay, what about this? There was a time that I did that, and Dave's like, oh, a demon, just rips itself out of a portal. It was clear he was looking for a fight that night. So bam, I put a room down on the map. I pull one of my demon figures out. I turn the demon section of my monster manual, and bam, we had demon fight right then and there. There should be no problems for a DM to throw it to the group and just allow them to. Not only are they going to put something that you might not have thought of or planned, but they're usually going to fulfill what it is that they want to do at this moment. So if they're looking for combat, they're going to put a combat scene in. If they're looking for something to role play, they're going to put something to talk in. It might very well be both. You could have a conversation and then the fight breaks out, So if you've got a little bit of, quick thinking, if you've designed enough sessions, or we're super fond of D&D Beyond, so you run off of a computer, whether it be behind the screen or if the computer is your screen, while the role playing is going on, you can be like, okay, let's go into the demon section, let's find an outsider that it's going to work. Okay, this guy is an appropriate challenge. All right, regardless of how I described them, you use a stat block that's going to fit best for that particular fight, and bam, you get into it. So multitasking is a DM requirement. So,
and you can also start slow. Like, you don't have to start there. As far as if you want to start giving players more agency, it could be small things like, oh, you guys have arrived at whatever city, you've been here before. Maybe one of the characters even lived there. Be like, and they they're like, hey, we want to go to a tavern. What are the taverns? Be like, well, turn to whoever your character has been here before, they lived here or whatever. What is the favorite tavern for your character to go to? And let them start filling in some of the small details. And then then they get like kind of vested in the world building.
And world building is an excellent point to get them to be a part of, because then as they build it with you, as Dave says, they're going to care more about it because they've had a hand in building it. As a player, I don't know how stringent this is, so I can rephrase if need be, but don't be a dick. Don't come to the session with a character that's designed to muck with other players or muck with the story. Come to have fun and be a part of the group, not be a thorn in someone's side.
Yeah, the my character wouldn't do that. Ugh, such a hard eye roll at. Well, make a character that will, because otherwise go sit in the corner for the evening. Yeah, so I think some people take the game a little too serious. At the end of the day, it should be about people above the game, right? Play the game with people you want to be friends with and you would want to hang out and do other things with as well. I feel like so many of the oddball questions we get are about, how do I make so-and-so do X? And you can't make anybody do anything really. So, or that people want to try and solve out of game problems in game. Again, can't be done, right? A lot of this stuff just relies on us, being decent humans to each other and communicating.
Did you, as the DM, memorize dominate person today? No? Well, then you can't.
Yeah, you can't do anything. So that's the biggest thing. Play with your friends. If they're, or if you're inviting people to your table, invite people to your table that you want to be friends with. I think that's going to give you much better experiences. And, if you can, like all of our games, start with us all just kind of chatting amongst each other before the game and then generally after the game. As busy adults, it is harder for us to socialize and get out there. And the game has become just the thing that we do while we kind of socialize.
So, a caveat on that, the my character wouldn't do that. One of the, still standout characters that we've played was a, good friend of mine. He made Giles the librarian, very comedic, friend. And he was that character was the, I don't want to do that. But the player didn't have that mindset. Dave was the GM. This was initially started as a second edition game that moved into third edition, and Giles hated nature. He hated being outside of the library.
Hated adventuring.
He hated adventuring, and he had some horrible stories, mind you, that happened to him. And I'm not going to go into all of them, but his mentor, his librarian, or his wizard teacher, refused to teach him more magic unless he did different things, because he understood that you had to go out and experience life to become a better wizard. And it was super comical to hear him whine and complain. I don't want to go back out there. I got set on fire, knocked to the ground, and then shoved into the water while I was unconscious. Like, that totally happened in a session. It was hysterical, the things that wound up happening to this poor wizard. But the player understood, oh, well, I have to go do this. This is part of the game. And he built it into the character. But there's so many times that players make characters that are just contrary to what the story is. So like you have to work with people, both as characters and as players.
Yeah, that is fantastic. That is great advice. Sage, unless you had anything else, I was going to do a bit of a closer.
Yeah, for sure. I just thank you guys so much. It's fun getting to listen to you guys.
Yes, we can talk about this all day, but
I'm used to Blake being the smartest one in the room, and now I get to see that he's
he might still be the smartest one in the room.
As a bit of a closing question, we just wanted to ask for the people watching this, like, how can we and how can our viewers, our fans, support you guys and support your channel and what you're doing?
That's really easy. I mean, you can find us over on Nerdarchy on YouTube, on the website. I mean, we make and sell products. We do the Patreon thing like everybody else. But you know what? Come check us out, hang out, and see if our content's something that resonates with you or not, and then you can decide from there how and if you want to support us. There's plenty of ways.
It's really good, I promise.
I mean, honestly, if you just search Nerdarchy, you're going to find us. We do a lot of different things, and we can be found a variety of different places, as Dave says. YouTube, the website. We have a Patreon. But I mean, it's however you want to, choose to engage with us, should you choose to do so.
Right, and we will link all that down in the description. But yeah, definitely go check them out. It is really great stuff. But yeah, that's I think all we had, unless you guys had any closing thoughts.
I would just say, thanks for having us on. This was a real pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, and I really appreciate seeing like the next crop of YouTubers coming up and what you guys are doing. We're talking about that a little bit before we got started. You guys have done a great job, and you guys are so much better than us when we started. And to see where the D&D YouTube space has gone is so cool. And you guys have a really new channel, and you guys are kicking ass already. You got your first 1,000 subscribers in no time flat. So that's pretty impressive. So, kudos to you guys, man. You guys are kicking ass.
We really appreciate it. That means a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Coming from you guys, that is fantastic. Yeah. So thank you so much.
You guys have been a lot of my crash course on how to play. So I'm making my characters. I'm looking like, wait, okay, which classes are bad? Oh wait, Rangers are bad. Oh god.
Hey, no class is bad. It's just how you decide to make a character and play. And again, the focus of the game. If you've got a very RP heavy game, it doesn't matter what you've got mechanically. It's RPing. So,
right. Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, well, that's closing out here. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate your presence and every insight you've provided. So knowledgeable about the game and just so enjoyable to talk to. So thank you for supporting the small guys like us.
We really appreciate it. The community is just so amazing, and you guys being here and being able to talk to you guys, it reassures us of what is to come, because it's really an amazing game, and it really creates a community of people that are all just really love telling stories, and acting them out and being with friends. I think it's a really amazing thing. But yeah, so we will see you guys, and hopefully we will see you in the future. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay nerdy.